A newly named storm in the tropics and another area to watch behind it that could develop into a sneaky storm with potential impacts. Welcome in, folks. Great to see you on this wonderful Sunday, August 24th. Boy, oh boy. I mean, it's like every time I get on here, it's the next day, right? Funny how that works. But yeah, we've got some things to talk about. We've got multiple areas in the tropics, including one that continues to overperform model guidance. And it's going to get into an area here soon that, if it continues that trend, very well could develop into something meaningful. So we'll need to discuss that. We've got newly named Fernand out into the Atlantic, and then obviously fall-like weather rushing in for many of us, and we'll be talking about that as well in today's video. If you're new to the channel, welcome. My name's Gerald. I'm a meteorologist at WCCB Charlotte, and if you haven't already, go ahead and like the video, subscribe, and hit the bell for the latest notifications. All of that helps me out, and it helps you out, and it's free, so why not do it? If it helps both of us out, always an easy thing to do. So with that said, let's dive right on into the data and give you the latest information. So we'll start with satellite loop, and you can see portions of the Atlantic as well, even portions of the eastern United States right now. Up here to the north, this is newly named Tropical Storm Fernand. It was issued last night. It got the name, and I'll just go ahead and give you a spoiler alert. It's not going to matter for basically anybody unless you happen to know Nemo from Finding Nemo. Maybe it'll matter to him, but either way, that one's going to pull well off into the Atlantic and not even really get all that strong while it's doing so. Now, down to the south behind that, this is Invest 99L, and oops, sorry about that, satellite just updated there, but Invest 99L there at the bottom of the screen. This is one that continues to overperform model guidance, and it's in a place right now that is pretty hostile for tropical systems, but it's going to work into an environment that could become more conducive for development. So we'll need to watch that over the coming days. And then you can see up here, well up closer to me, we've got this big storm into Canada and a big, nice fall cold front sweeping into the eastern U.S. right now. And boy, oh boy, is that going to bring quite the nice week ahead. Show you the latest from the National Hurricane Center regarding all these areas, and you can see here's Fernand, not even expected to become a hurricane, going to remain a tropical storm and likely a weak one at that as it pulls up north into the Atlantic and eventually gets killed off by some cooler sea surface temperatures. Now down south towards Barbados, Martinique, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and even down towards Grenada, this is that other area that we're watching for possible development, and it's got a medium % chance of developing right now, and you can see how that goes all the way into the Caribbean. I really don't think this one's going to have much of a shot to become anything significant in the near term. It's later this week. Once it gets out here into the Western Caribbean, that's when we'll need to watch it, and it could potentially even try to pull northward and maybe sneak into the Gulf. So a lot to discuss with that one. And speaking of that, let's go ahead and switch on over, analyze these areas a little bit more in depth, and give you the latest forecast. Here's Tropical Storm Fernand, and not Fernand. I know the name might look a little confusing depending on where you see it, but it's pronounced Fernand, and definitely a tropical system, at this hour. It's looking like one, not overly healthy by any means, and you might be wondering, Gerald, where are we even looking? I don't see anything. Well, obviously you see the storm, but this tiny little speck over here that I'm going to circle, that's Bermuda, so this is even further west, or east, I should say, than the island of Bermuda. That's good news. That means this is really going to pull on out to sea, not be a problem for really anybody at all. Obviously, some ship captains will maybe have to avoid this one, but generally speaking, this one going to be one of those no impact storms, and we will take it after what has been relatively a lucky season so far in terms of any sort of direct impacts. Here's the other area we need to watch, though. This one could get the next name on the list, and you can see it's approaching the Antilles now. Generally, this one has had pulse convection, and that's why the NHC hasn't quite given it a name yet. We have had some satellites pass over it, and they detect where we have surface circulation, and there have been signs that this one has gotten very close multiple times, but I reckon it just hasn't quite been consistent enough for the National Hurricane Center to go ahead and pull the trigger and give it a name, but still looking relatively impressive. And I'll tell you, all of our models continue to struggle with this one. They've all had it kind of dying off before ever even getting to this point. Now it's, holding on for dear life and doing so in a manner that, doesn't look half bad for a tropical wave. Definitely has, again, you can see these bursts of convection. Now they're not lasting for, more than 12 hours or so, which is kind of the threshold to give it a name, but looking okay. And at the same time, the storm right now is battling some drier air. In fact, if I change it on over, I'm going to do this on the fly here. Let's see if we can pull up water vapor and update the plot here. You'll definitely see that, this is not in a pristine environment. It's got dry air chasing it from behind in those red and orange colors. It's got a little bit of dry air in front of it. But as we go through the next week or so, things are going to become more favorable for this storm to potentially develop into something else. Now, before we dive into that, I just very quickly want to, just remind you and give you some ease of mind here on Fernand. Here it is. This is the latest model run. You can see Fernand pulling up and on out of here. And that's the storm, if you even want to call it that. It's a storm right now, but going to get ripped apart by some wind shear, dry air, and much cooler ocean temperatures here in the near term. So just to say, I showed you some model data on Fernand. There you go. You can't say I didn't. All right, that's Fernand. That's the satellite imagery. Let's dive into the model analysis of this invest and try to decipher, where it may end up, and sure, could it even develop into our next named storm and maybe even bring some impacts. This is one of the main reasons we need to watch that next invest. It's now starting to work into a region of the Atlantic that has warmer than average sea surface temperatures. Now, through much of the main development region, we're actually a little bit cooler than average for this time of year. And then you can obviously see the wake from Hurricane Aaron, where it moved through, pulled up plenty of cold, or at least cooler than average water, we should say, out near the Bahamas. Now, that'll probably settle down a little bit over the next couple of weeks and come back to life somewhat, but you can see what some of those tropical systems do. Current one, though, remember, working into these warmer ocean temperatures, and that'll really be a big key for the forecast. It's not even just that the temperatures here are warmer than average. That warm water goes deep into the ocean. This is ocean heat content, and one of the primary tools to use when forecasting intensity of a system. We have very, very deep, warm waters here near Cuba, near the Yucatan Peninsula, and basically kind of right where the system is eventually going to track. And, if you don't have to be a stranger or somebody, I should say, that's very knowledgeable to the Atlantic to know that this is where we get a lot of storms that really get strong during Atlantic hurricane season. So anytime anything tries to sneak into that region, it's absolutely worth watching. And you can see it here pretty good on the GFS model that, the warm waters are not the only thing that could help this thing out. Now, right now, this is the wind shear map, or at least upper level winds. The storm getting ripped apart a little bit, but I showed you on satellite, we've got the strong wind shear, but the storm's still holding on even with that. These strong easterly winds coming off of the main development region and over the storm. What's going to happen later this week, though, is conditions are going to become more favorable. This is by Wednesday into Thursday. We start to get much lighter winds, and in fact, these upper level winds beginning to diverge over the Caribbean, and that could definitely help to fan the system out, deepen the pressure, and give it a much better shot of developing into something a bit stronger. That's not the only thing. The humidity values are going to start to rise out here as well. Now, the storm kind of caked between two dry pockets right now. Let me back it back up again right here. You can see that here as well. We've got some dry air in front of it, very dry air behind it. And then right here's our little storm kind of just holding on for dear life with its own little environment that it's trying to create. Keep it going, though, and right here in that same time frame that wind shear relaxes, humidity rises, and, warm ocean temperatures out here. So you put all that together and you start thinking, well, maybe this is one worth watching. And the model's still not really grasping onto this, I think. I think they're underdoing it. I'll be honest, I would be pretty surprised if the storm doesn't try to take advantage of these conditions later on this week. Now, that's one part of the puzzle. The other part of the puzzle is, well, where in the world would it go if it does develop into something? Does it plow into Central America, or does it start to curve north into the Gulf? Well, let's take a look at some model data and try to answer that. Here's some ensemble data, and remember, the operational run's really not doing much with 99L, but you'll notice some of these European members do try to develop it into something. Most of them, though, try to bring it here into Central America, and that's probably the first thing that jumps out at you, but also, look to the north here. See how we have just a couple of members, not a lot, but a couple up here into the Bay of Campeche. I think what's happening there is a lot of those members don't develop it here into the Caribbean, then pull it up past the Yucatan, and then try to develop. So, some things to figure out here. And if you look at the GFS ensembles, you'll see that sort of solution even more so. Really not any of them doing anything in the Caribbean, but then get the energy up towards the Gulf and try to, get it going into something much bigger. So plenty of things to figure out here. But let me just give you the reminder, 99L so far has outdone model expectations. So generally speaking, the trend is your friend. And if the trend is the storm is doing better than everything is kind of depicted so far, you want to keep an eye on it. And, I'm not so convinced that this hasn't already been an actual storm at times, then maybe just kind of bouncing back and forth as a weak tropical storm or an open wave as its center of circulation struggles to fully get its act together. But it's something we'll watch. Nothing to panic about, not forecasting a major hurricane landfall or anything, but something to watch because you'll notice after this, there's not really much going on in the Atlantic. I think we'll get a bit of a lull through the end of August and hopefully even to at least the first week of September. Things look to become more quiet. So that's your update on the tropics. Let's bring things on back home and take a look at that nice fall air mass that's arriving just in time for all those fall activities. Here's a look at radar, and it might be hard to find where the front is, but it's kind of draped right into here right now and kind of crossing the Appalachia chain and getting some of those showers and storms to try to develop. And I think a lot of us here east of the Apps will see a couple storms today. I say a lot of us. What I mean is it'll be isolated in nature, but some of us definitely will get in on some rain. Pretty heavy rain down into Florida. It's been a rainy couple of days as we've had these nonstop stalled out frontal boundaries just draping across the Sunshine State. So more of that ongoing today. But the big story is what's to come, and that is this really nice fall air mass. You can see it well here. These are our 850 millibar temperature anomaly. There we go, said it right. Kind of, maybe the first try. I don't know, you tell me. But basically the point of this map is it does a great job at picking out where cold fronts are. Whenever you look at surface temperature maps, it can be tough because there's a topography that can mess with it and other little features. But when you look just above the surface, a cold front is just an area between a warmer air mass and a cooler air mass. So obviously, you look at this map right now and it's not hard to find where that front is draped right again into here. So there's your cold front. I could have drawn it in blue. There we go. We'll draw it in blue here and pushing off towards the East Coast and into the Gulf region where it will be bringing that nicer air. And you can see that here. Watch that blue start to work on in. These are those below average temperatures lock into place. Here's by Wednesday into your Thursday, your Friday, your Saturday. It really hangs on for quite some time. It's not just the temperatures, it's the dew point and the humidity that will be crashing down as well. Now, not really overly humid for anybody today outside of, again, maybe Florida, but either way, look at these really nice dew points crashing. This is by Tuesday afternoon. I mean, we've got dew points in the 40s as far south as the Florida Panhandle, according to the GFS model here. I can't really, overstate how impressive that is for August. If this were wintertime, this would be a really nice cold air mass, but for, very early fall standards, really just bringing a lot of much nicer, drier air. And the good news is it tries to hang on for some time. In fact, we also get kind of a reinforcing shot of this drier air that tries to work in later this week and tries to keep these more summery dew points and humidity values out of here. So that's definitely a good thing to see. In terms of temperatures, I'll show you Wednesday afternoon highs. Yeah, most of us are going to struggle to even find the 80s outside of the deep south. Highs only up into the lower 70s, into the Great Lakes and into the Northeast. If you're up into the mountains of the Northeast, probably not going to get out of the 60s. So definitely starting to feel like fall. That doesn't do it for you. Look at the morning temperatures. This is this coming Thursday, August 28th, that morning. Yeah, we've got lows down into the 40s into New England. We've got some 40s even mixing into the Ohio Valley, down into the 50s, into the Mid-South, and then the Deep South, starting off your day into the 60s and 70s, depending on where you're watching from. But definitely not a half bad fall air mass here on the way. Now, the question is, how long does it last, and will we have to fight some rain with it? Well, let's go ahead and take a look. As I've been talking about, this will be ushering in nicer air, and that includes drier air. However, on the outer edge of this, we will have to dodge some rain. Here's Monday morning. Notice, again, we've got a little piece of energy over towards Kansas, Oklahoma, that area, trying to get some rain there by your Monday. And that little piece of energy tries to rotate around this, but it kind of gets suppressed by surface high pressure. I wouldn't be surprised, though. Notice, also, I should say, and we'll add this in as well, by Wednesday, I mentioned earlier, there'd be kind of 1 and 2 shots. That second shot of cooler air also working down from Canada. That one could produce a little bit of rain here for your Wednesday up into the north, and then that could even keep on working south and east there by your Thursday afternoon pictured here. Also by Thursday, some energy going to try to come out of the Rockies, I think, and bring some rain with it on the southern edge of this boundary. So once again, I think Oklahoma, Kansas, Texas, into Arkansas, and some of that could even spread into the southeast, especially southern sections of the southeast, kind of I-20 southbound here. I think you're going to have the highest shot of seeing rain out of that, and that would probably be your Thursday into your Friday time frame. Hopefully that doesn't affect too many high school football games and the start of college football for a lot of schools there. You can see here by this coming Saturday, most of us dry, it looks like, for college football. However, a little piece of energy, it rides south here and then tries to pull up the coast a little bit. I'll be honest, this is a pretty good wintertime pattern, actually. If this were, January, this could be a pretty nice southern snowstorm, but alas, we are in August still, so it'll just be a rainmaker, and we'll see what it does there off the southeast coastline by next week. But either way, most of us can be pretty dry, all things considered, this week. How long does this last, though? Well, this is 8 to 14 days out, so this is even getting us into the start of September, and you'll notice still below average temperatures are favored here into the eastern U.S., especially kind of the southern tier of the country, and rain chances by that point will begin to rise here for a lot of us. But still better than those very hot and dry conditions that you sometimes see in August and September. This looking a little bit cooler and more wet in the long range, meaning 8 to 14 days out. All right, folks, that's all I got for you on this wonderful Sunday. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, let me know in the comments. Let me know where you're watching from. Also, apologize for not having a video out yesterday. I'll just be honest, I needed a break. not that I'm burnt out or anything, but just had a very busy week of school and all. And then obviously I work the weekends at WCCB Charlotte. So it was one of those days I figured I'd just take an extra hour to sleep in. And did that. So yeah. Anyway, y'all have a great one. Stay safe. Catch me on air tonight at 6 and 10. And if you don't manage to do that, then I'll see you back tomorrow with another video.